and welcome to HR Bytes. HR Bytes is a podcast and video series to bring you stories of HR professionals who bring a think globally and act locally digital HR agenda to their work. Everyday people who are driving digital transformations in their organizations, data-driven and future-fit digital HR leaders. We are available on all your favorite podcast channels, and you can also watch us on YouTube. Please do follow us on social. We are on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Today's guest is Minh Hua. Minh has been an HR leader for over 2 decades, and we're so happy to have you join us today, Minh. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited to be here. And Jay, I have to say, I love what you're doing, spreading knowledge, just spreading practices. So thank you for everything that you're doing.
Absolutely. Would you like to say a few words about how you came upon the field of HR and what you love doing in the field of HR today?
Yeah, great question. So I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be an HR person. I fell into it because coming out of college, I wanted to get involved in community. So I joined a not-for-profit organization, and my mission was to provide workforce training, skills training to the underprivileged. So that's how I kind of just fell into HR. It was never a master plan, but the reason why I stayed is because I love helping individuals and teams be successful. So that's why I'm still here.
Wonderful. That's a great way to start your career in HR. So, Minh, in today's world of work and today's world of HR in July of 2022, what are the technology challenges that you think are foremost on HR leaders' agendas today?
Yeah, so I think there's two types. It depends on the company. There's two types of companies, and the first group, which is the largest group, it's really about cost efficiency and scaling. If you're in a company that's doing well, growing fast, how do you scale so that your cost per dollar revenue or per head count doesn't grow directly correlated to your revenue? So how do you grow in a nonlinear way? And so that's about efficiencies. That's about looking at the roles of the HR business partner, looking at how technology can make things more efficient. So that's the first grouping. And there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It is kind of what it is. The second grouping, a much smaller group, are companies who truly see the value of human capital. And so instead of asking, how do we do the same thing but cheaper? This group is asking, how do we unlock more value from our human capital? So what does that mean specifically? A few examples. Is there a way for us to predict voluntary attrition before it happens? Almost by definition, attrition plans are reactive. But if you can predict the hot spots and then better understand why people move, you can maybe do something about proactively. And there's a lot of value for the humans, for the teams, and for shareholders when you do that. Another example is how do we improve collaborations and innovation in a remote hybrid environment? That's unlocking value in human capital. So that's what a lot of C-suite executives are thinking about right now.
And that's a great segue into my next question. You know, HR teams have been grappling with creating that connectivity, that engagement, and making sure that everyone has that equal sense of belonging in the organization. How do you think technology has helped foster those connections, and how do you think our social capital as HR leaders has helped us foster technology within the organization?
I don't know that I would give my profession, and again, this is my only profession. So as I say this with an affection of someone that's been it his entire career. I don't know that I'd give us a passing grade. I don't know that my profession that I love dearly is great at technology. It's great at choosing technology. And so what we miss, and I'll tell you about the companies that are doing it great, but what by and large most companies and most HR functions are missing is the skill set to understand what technology is doing, to understand, to choose different vendors, to know where is the BS and where's the reality. If you think about AI ML, huge. We lack the skill set to think through data privacy and ethics. You know, what is AI ethics is a huge one, right? We also seem to lack the vision and maybe the incentives to say, maybe we should do things differently. Maybe half of our jobs don't need to be done by us humans. Maybe we should play at a different part of the value chain. So I don't know that I give us a high grade, but I see lots of companies trying. The most progressive companies, and I won't call out the good and the bad here, just out of courtesy. But if you look at the CHRO or CPO's leadership team, if they've got a true tech person on that leadership team, they're serious about it. Someone that's never probably, this is probably their first HR job. They're serious about it. And that's a telltale sign. Great question, Jay.
Wonderful. And thank you for those insights. So, we've all grappled and muddled along for the past 2 years and trying to make sense of all the technology that's being thrown at us, as well as all the real world challenges that come with all of the, technology that we are trying to adopt in the midst of a pandemic. How do you think HR teams have handled the mindset of just buying every shiny new object in our field? And as you just said, it's a pretty tough challenge right now for us to pick that really nice do good platform that will probably solve all our problems. Is there one out there? I don't know, but how do we go about handling that mindset?
That's a very astute question, and I'm thinking about writing an article just on this. But I think the problem is a little worse. So it's not really HR just buying everything, because most HR teams don't have that big of a budget, discretionary budget, because it's a cost center, right? It's actually, the problem's a little worse because HR teams with that limited budget that falls on the expense side of the P&L is buying the wrong things sometimes. And I think what's happening is that too often we are choosing people we like on the sales team. Too often we're listening and taking the sales demo at face. Where I would encourage all HR teams that have a influence, whether it's a purchase committee, investment committee, or just a kind of informal team, to say, hey, we will take what the sales team gives us, and we'll call that level 0. Okay, and we're going to go at least 3 levels below that to find it out. So, for example, Jay, if I come to you and I say, "Hey, I'm with a recruiting company. I use AI ML to help you find the best talent," you should be polite, but you should eventually ask me, "Tell me more about your algorithm. How's your algorithm been tested? What's the false positive, false negative? How do you think about bias in your algo? Okay, and then how does it work in the U.S. where the laws and the sensitivity around DE&I is different than, let's call it, India, right? That's what I mean by at least 3 levels. Love to get to 5, but at least 3. Hopefully that helps, Jay.
Absolutely, it does. And it makes a huge difference in who you adopt, as the technology of choice within your organization today, more so than ever before. So in this increased remote and hybrid work environment, how do you think, HR can play a role in generating and incubating innovative ideas and also scaling them up, especially for our HR function?
Great question. I think I'm afraid to start with one because HR people tend to gravitate towards this and don't really do much about it. I think org design. Have we designed our teams in a way that creates the most intersections that we need, that is fast, efficient? And so when you think about 2 pizza teams or microservices, That's the org design. Now, a lot of HR folks still, when you hear org design, they're thinking about corporate, divisions, right? I don't know there's not a clear evidence, but you go, it's six and one half dozen another. What matters is org design at the team level. So I start there, and then the second thing is investing the time and training dollars and helping leaders lead across distances, physical distance, and time zones. Unfortunately, the incentives of the HR profession is so that we tend to focus our attention on macro issues and senior people. We need to tilt. We badly need to tilt towards frontline managers and how the real world behaves. Deliver that the training, the practice, the encouragement, the coaching, so that managers can be the best that they can. That is the single largest lever we have for the employee experience. So design of teams and helping managers do well.
Absolutely. I was attending the SHRM Technology Conference recently, and one of the biggest takeaways from that was how do we create better workplaces and better managers in order to foster those better workplaces, right? Because they are the key to better
Yeah.
workplaces. So, Min, you worked across the globe, and you've obviously used a lot of HR data and metrics in your work. How do you think we as HR professionals should be approaching HR data and metrics in this now of work?
Yeah, that's great. And I love that how you call it the now of work. I did a presentation to a group of early career HR folks recently. One of my key messages is the presentation was called Data Driven Empathy. Data Driven Empathy. And in one of the pages I had, my message was essentially, it doesn't matter if you like statistics or you don't understand it and you're afraid of numbers. You are data driven. It's just a different type of data. So what are the different types of data, right? It's quant numbers. It's field observations / anecdotes, super important. And then, I would say kind of a other bucket that's really more in the kind of the predictive realm. Okay. That machine learning type stuff. Uh, everyone, most everyone in the people that I meet are smart enough, educated enough. So it's not about you being data driven because Jay, if I come to you and I say, hey, you gotta be more data driven, it sounds like if you're not already data driven in the classical sense, it sounds scary. That doesn't do you any good. What I need to tell you, Jay, is that you are data driven. I just want you to have a little more diversity in your data. So if you had a master's degree in statistics, you more likely than not spend a lot of time doing desktop analysis, and you form your judgments through reading studies and looking at numbers. I probably want you to go diversify your data and get out and speak to people. Flip that, whereas probably the majority of HR business partners, they get their data through conversations, which is super important. You can't replace that. I'd like them to do a little more on analytics. So it's about diversifying your data.
Wonderful. That's a great insight. The field side of things, right? Really, really important today. So that's a great segue into my last question for you. The serious side of the questions, that is. We do have a fun question connection round after this. How do you think HR professionals should be approaching their work today when it comes to all the different changes that we have to grapple with? What's one piece of advice you have for HR professionals who are looking to adopt or learn new technology? We spoke about bad behaviors during a digital transformation. If you could start with that, that would be great.
A lot to unpack there. So the question is advice for HR leaders as the organization goes through digital transformation.
Absolutely, yes.
I think it's number one. I would say always start with your values. Be very clear-minded about your North Star. Second is read the tea leaves. Is this truly a digital transformation or is it not? 70% of digital transformations fail. I would argue that nearly half, if not slightly over half, of digital transformations are more posters than substantive reality. Uh, and you've got to really, really read that because that tells you where to spend your time. And if it's a true digital transformation, then the biggest and most important isn't the technology. More CIOs tell me it's not the technology than anyone else. CIOs will say it's not the technology. It's shaping the human behaviors. It's breaking old habits, forming new ones. Guess what? I think HR has a role to play in that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that's the way I want HR to look at digital transformation, not scary technology things that the CIO and the CTO will take care of. That is absolutely the case. Yeah.
Wonderful advice. Thank you for that. So this is the funner part of our conversation where our viewers get to learn a little bit more about you. It's called our Question Connection Rapid Fire round, and we have theme music for this round as well. So are you ready?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. Who is one person you've gained in your network in the field of HR technology that you think more people should listen to and learn from?
I just off the top of my head, I really like Dr. Mark Mayberry and Dr. Mukesh Dalal. Mukesh is the Chief AI Officer for Stanley Black & Decker, a guy I've learned a lot from. And Mark Mayberry was recently the Chief Technology Officer. Really smart people.
Wonderful. And I'll link their account in the show notes if they have a LinkedIn profile for our audience. Do you have a favorite HR podcast or an HR book that you think that's related to HR technology that you think we should all be listening to or reading?
I don't read a lot of HR books, and I don't actually have a degree in HR, so it's a secret. Don't tell your listeners. No, I'm just kidding. So I would recommend these three books. It's Think Fast, Think Slow. Okay. The writer won the Nobel Prize in economics. I would say it's How Good People Make Tough Choices. It's by Rush Kidder, and it talks about ethics and in the modern days, but very practical advice. And then I would say it's The Innovator's Dilemma. It's a classic, but that's great business acumen for our times.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I'll link those in the show notes as well. If there is a LinkedIn Learning or e-learning webinar series for HR technology, if you can't think of that off the top of your head right now, you can send it to me and I will put it in the show notes. But is there one that you can think of off the top?
I think I'll listen to your podcast, Jay.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I haven't done a lot of episodes, but I hope I'm, sharing quality information with the limited number of episodes that we release. And
no, but seriously, I don't do a lot of LinkedIn Learning or things like that just because I learn best by reading versus hearing.
Wonderful. That's a great way to learn as well. Given the upheaval of all things work in the past 2 years, what's one workplace trend that you think is here to stay?
I think remote work is here to stay. It's going to be an ebb and flow, but if you think, listen, over the next 10 years, it's gonna be slightly in season, slightly off season, right? It's gonna ebb and flow a little bit, but the trend line, it's gonna be much greater. It'll continue to be much greater than 2019. The long time horizon, let's call it 2050, 2080, population's increasing, land mass isn't. The structural things, the reality of this world will dictate that remote work continues. You can't break the law of physics.
Absolutely. And I see that happening more on the Asia side of the world. Their remote work is definitely going to stay because of the structural and infrastructural challenges we have due to the increase in population. I don't see that as much in the US. I have 2 offices in my house, one for recreational stuff, one for recording my podcast. So I'm not challenged for space as much, but there are places, even pockets in the US that have those challenges, like New York, for example. I know my friend has, who lives in New York, has a lot of those challenges. So that's that's very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. And
And Jay, I'll give you and your audience one prediction. Right now, remote work is like the employee benefit du jour, right? Do I have to go in the office? Do I have to go in the office? Please don't make me go to the office every day. That's kind of the du jour. By 2030, it will not be uncommon for recruiters to say, Jay, if you come work for us, we'll get you a WeWork office near your home, where the ability to access the office becomes a popular way to recruit employees. That's my prediction, 2030.
all right. Hope I'm alive in 2030 and I can record another session with you by then. And how do you like giving back to the HR community? I know you do a lot of this work, you help out podcasts like mine. How else do you like to give back to the HR community?
I do a lot of mentoring. I'll take just about every call. Hey, listen, a double-digit percentage is not a good use of my time, but I'll take the call. And I'm at an age and a point in my life in which it's the least about me it has ever been. And I think it's an amazing feeling. And so I'll give back in any way. On the personal side, I like to focus on refugees and children. On the HR side and the business side, I'm a Techstar mentors. I'll mentor HR people. I like to write. I like to help people like you, Jay, spread the word.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here, Min. I really appreciate your time. And if our audience would like to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
I think connect with me on LinkedIn. I will accept your connection. And if you have questions or need anything, just ask.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. And I really appreciate your insights. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience has learned a tremendous lot about the HR tech world today. And, in the future, if we have any other opportunities to collaborate, I'd love to have you on board as well. So thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.